Welcome to the West Coast Speakeasy, Vancouver Island's finest.
Thanks very much for coming.
Yeah, I'm psyched to be here.
Yeah, man, this is my second episode in the new space, so
Beautiful.
very, very early on here.
For those of you who can't see, this space is pretty sweet. So
Yeah,
yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
thank you very much. So I've got Lucky Bud with me here today. For anyone watching, best-selling author, oral historian, and musician.
Yeah,
Perfect. So thank you very much.
yeah,
I thought maybe we could just start by kind of going back in time to maybe your university days at UVic,
sure.
where everything started off
Yep,
for you, I guess,
yep.
in reference to all the books and everything. You got the opportunity to curate the Orchard collection,
It all starts way before that, though.
but way
Way,
before that.
way before that.
All right. So why don't you?
I'll just tell you the
I'll
story.
let you take
I'll tell you the story.
the reins then.
Uh, as a little kid, I was always obsessed with recording everything, like starting when I was in preschool.
Right.
And I had a thing when I was in kindergarten where I wouldn't get on the bus to go to kindergarten unless I brought a different record with me
Oh,
every
cool.
day. So, and there's actually a photograph of me, I think, as a 4 or 5 year old at preschool in the record station listening to one of the records I brought on the bus.
Yeah.
And when I was really little, even earlier than that, I used to love making mixtapes off the radio.
Oh, nice.
And one of the torture devices my brothers would do is they would hit pause and they would hold me down so I couldn't unpause it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was like such a thing. I loved recording
Yeah.
everything. So that transferred over for my whole life. I've always been,
Right.
I loved music and
Yeah.
loved recording.
The recording guy.
I had a really hard time learning how to read. I
Right.
wasn't reading until I was in grade 5. And it
Okay.
wasn't that I was dyslexic. I had like some very poor teachers and a bad schooling situation.
Okay.
But my favorite time of school always was when teachers would read us stories.
Mhm.
Loved it in the
Yeah.
library or everything. So I've always loved storytelling from the time I was really little. And
Mhm.
when I reflect back on my love of music, actually, a good song is a good story. So I've just always loved storytelling my whole life.
Mhm.
When the Grateful Dead entered my life when I was 13 years old, one of the things that really attracted me to them was the fact that they allowed their fans to record. And I
Right.
found this incredible connection with so many people for the
Mhm.
first time in my life who not only loved the music as much as I did, but also loved recording.
Yeah.
And that was just so good for me to find that community as a 13-year-old. And it really carried me through. And I would say much of what I've been able to do with my life has been influenced by my love of recording and my love of the Grateful Dead. It's
Right.
amazing how that has influenced so much because the deeper I got, the more I learned about recording, the more I learned about yeah, I mean, it was also at that time that I started playing guitar as a
Mhm.
13-year-old and starting to
Yeah. Right.
play.
Yeah.
And again, a good song is a good story.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things actually that also really attracted me to the Dead,
Yeah.
who aren't like my only favorite band, but I love Dylan, I love Neil Young, I love singer-songwriters who are
Yeah.
storytellers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when I started at UVic in 1995 for my BA, I realized very early on that now that the Grateful Dead were done,
Mhm.
it was time to start my own band and not tour with
Right.
other bands, but start my own.
Yeah.
So I started a band with a couple friends here called Lift,
Yeah.
and we toured Canada from 1997 to 2001 while I was doing my undergrad.
Oh, wow.
So while I was doing my undergrad, I actually ended up getting a general BA. I
Right.
didn't have a major.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I didn't have a major was because I found that if I took too much of one thing, I got kind of bored,
Mhm.
but I could really get into the things that I was taking. So I ended up doing a minor in philosophy and
Okay.
a minor in Greek and Roman studies because once again, I loved the stories of the mythology.
Mhm.
I just loved it. And I was in a touring rock band the whole time, so it worked out really well. As soon as my degree was done, I got a call from the Provincial Archives of BC. My best friend David Lemieux, who is now the Grateful Dead's legacy manager and archivist, he recommended me to the BC Archives. They were looking for somebody to digitize their oral history recordings.
Mhm.
And I was known as the guy who records things. So it
Yeah.
all goes back to being a kid and recording things.
Right.
And then we move up to, university days and Grateful Dead days recording. And while I was in Lyft, I recorded all of our shows and I recorded lots of other bands. So I had a bit of a reputation as the guy who records
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
So I got this call in probably June of 2000, right after I got my degree. Hey, we hear you're the guy who records things. You were recommended to us. We have these huge collections of audio holdings. Can you help us digitize them. And I said, well, I'm going on tour with my band in September. And they said, well, that's not a problem. You make your own hours. It's a contract. And I remember like holding the phone away from my face and looking at it and being like, am I being offered a job to record things on my own schedule? Like,
Yeah.
this is incredible.
Yeah.
So I took the job, went on tour with my band, and started at the BC Archives, which is attached to the Royal BC Museum in late 2000.
Right.
And the goal of that project was to digitize all of the CBC audio holdings that were housed there. They had a huge budget from the CBC to digitize all the recordings
Yeah.
that were CBC. So some of them went back as early as like 1930s, 1920s
Right.
on like old wax cylinders and sound
Wow.
discs, like records that were made of aluminum that were like that big.
That's pretty cool.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the material was great. Like I got to listen to like Louis Armstrong live in Vancouver
Right.
in 1942.
Wow.
And like I found some really, really cool things. It was
Yeah.
really cool. But the crown jewel of all of the CBC holdings was something called the Orchard Collection.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Orchard went around BC for the CBC from 1959 to 1966, and he interviewed 998 people who were either first generation British Columbians or First Nations. And it really was the story of how British Columbia went from a place with about 100 non-native people in 1858 to 400,000 by the First World War. From the people who were there building the roads, the artists, the miners, like just everybody. And to hear the stories in their own words, every time I put on the headphones, it was like I was entering a time machine.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of your listeners are familiar with music, but Ferris Romero is a Grammy Award-winning banjo player and songwriter, and luthier. Her husband's a banjo player. She's a guitar player. Jason and Ferris Romero. She was one of my best friends at UVic at the time. Her last name is Patnod. So at the time she was Ferris Patnod. And 1 week after starting on the Orchard Collection, I found these tapes that said Patnod, Horsefly.
Right.
Ferris was fifth generation from Horsefly.
Wow.
These were recordings of her great-great-grandfather and her great-great-uncle.
Wow.
Speaking in a language she could understand, about a place she knows. And the family didn't even know that these recordings were there. And so they were like some of the first settlers in the Caribou region of BC. Right. And it hit me right away. Holy smokes, what I'm listening to here is not only the story of the province, but it's like people's background. Like this is their ancestry in a language they could understand. There's no recordings that exist of my great-great-grandparents.
Right, exactly.
And if they were, they wouldn't be in a language I could understand. And it would be about places that I wouldn't know anything about.
Yeah.
This is really important work. So I took it really seriously.
Yeah.
And I started listening really, really closely. And it hit me very quickly that I was being entrusted with something basically through the recording. I mean, I could have been listening to anything, but I was being entrusted upon listening to stuff with a story of the history of the province that nobody else will ever have.
Right.
I have to do something with this. I have to write a book.
Yeah.
So I have to get this material out to the public. Like it's incredible. I mean, I put on my headphones and all of a sudden, like I'm in a canoe with this woman going down the Nass River to be a teacher at a reserve. And, you know, one of the people taking her is falling out of the canoe and they have to get him out and he's frozen. And like, you're in it with these people. It was incredible. I get goosebumps talking about it.
Yeah.
So it took me 4 years to listen to and digitize that collection.
Everything, yeah.
But while I was doing it, I went to UVic to get a master's degree in history so that I could get the background I needed and the legitimacy and learn how to write the books that I knew I needed to write.
Yeah.
And so it all started with recording, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of luck and a lot of vision, you know, like I saw what I needed to do. How am I going to go ahead and do that? And so I ended up getting a master's degree in history, specifically on oral history and how it can be used as a source for history, which has then impacted all of the books and all the work that I've done since.
Right.
I know it's a bit of a long-winded story.
No, but it gives a really good context.
It's all, there's a lot of little threads that get tied together that have brought me here today. Yeah. It's pretty fun.
Crazy.
Yeah. Fun too. Like it's all really fun.
It sounds like, and the feeling that you got when you were like so immersed in these stories with all these people, like, as you said, gives you goosebumps. I'm sure it was almost like a spiritual experience.
It was. There were moments that it really, really was.
Yeah.
So my job was to get a lot of these recordings to play. A lot of them were on old reel-to-reel tapes that nobody had touched in 50 years. Sometimes they were really messed up and they couldn't even be played. We had to like bake them in an oven in order to get them to play. But I was to digitize them. And while I did that, listen to them and fill out a bit of a finding aid,
Mhm.
not point form, but like sentences, Mr. Roy Atkinson came from Cornwall to Salmon Arm in 1892. This is so that if you as a researcher want to know about mining in the Caribou in the 1880s, you could basically put that into a database, and all of the stories where I flagged that will come up, and then you can read the descriptions, get the tapes, and you can listen to them yourself.
Right.
And so now historians can access this material, and they do,
Yeah.
which is awesome because
Very
no one knew
cool.
anything about this stuff before then. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
great. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Was there anything in doing all of the research that really surprised you that you wouldn't have thought of?
Yeah, I found history growing up to be somewhat
Boring.
dry and boring.
Mm-hmm.
When you put the storytelling into it, facts are always embedded in the narrative of a good story. So if you hear a really good story about these guys who were working on the railway and they all got drunk one night and they all got picked up by the mounted police except for one of them, and that guy went in the morning and broke them all out, and then the RCMP come to try to figure out who broke these guys out of jail, you learn so much not only about the camaraderie of these people and the fact that people are always kind of trying to get away with stuff, and there's a lot of joking, and you find out about the character of the people, but embedded in that is, well, yeah, the railway was built in the 1880s.
Right.
So the facts are embedded in the narrative of the story, but you never forget a really good and interesting story. And all of a sudden, the character of these people and what they had to do to navigate the landscapes. I mean, in British Columbia, I think we've got something like 27 different ecosystems. Like we have as many ecosystems in British Columbia as we do for the rest of Canada combined. We've got, tundra, plains, mountains, coastal areas, we've got it all, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives rise to so many different kinds of stories. Like the story you'll hear from someone in the Kootenays is so different than you'll hear from somebody in, Chilliwack, and so different than you'll hear from somebody up like in Atlin, or so I mean, everywhere you went, it was this interesting story after interesting story, and people did such stupid things. And a lot of people did great things. It was like tragedies, and it was like laughter, and it was all of it. So
and what kind of comes to mind too is how tough people must have been, back then, and just the struggles.
Yeah. And also the relationships with First Nations. Like every single person who was a settler, all they said was like, yeah, without the First Nations people here helping us, like we would not have survived. Like, and there was like you really get a feel for the relationships and the relationship building in a lot of these communities. Yeah, I mean, just fascinating stuff. I encourage anyone who's interested to check out my books, Voices of British Columbia, and Echoes of B.C, because those are literally stories that I curated from these things where you can hear the stories in people's own words. And it's fascinating. And it actually led to a CBC radio show that I had called Voices of B.C that was part of North by Northwest on Sunday mornings.
How long did that last for?
It was like 3 or 4 years, and I would do it once every month or so. Cheryl Ray would have me play a little story. And there were so many people who were really encouraging of the work that I was doing, and could obviously feel the passion I had for what I was doing. And I had this mission, like, how do we bring storytelling back into the way that we teach history? And it's become such a passion of mine, is bringing storytelling back into the way that we communicate with each other. And I really believe the more that we learn about each other through storytelling, the more we realize how much we have in common as opposed to what we don't have in common. And as I said, facts are always embedded in the narrative of a good story.
Very cool. So I've read about a couple of the people that you interviewed or their stories, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to go just into a few of the stories, like a few of them.
You'll jog my memory, I'm sure.
Sure. Well, the ones that, so Thomas Bullman, who had the eyewitness account of the McLean gang. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of hooligans around in the time that British Columbia was, growing in population, and a lot of local history. You hear stories about, mythologies, but when you get to go back and you get to hear like, well, I was actually there, and I remember how this thing happened. There's so many like that. There was this, infamous murder case up in where Roy Vickers actually lives, along the Skeena, of this guy Simon Gunanute, and there's a story of a few people who were like, I was there that day. This is what actually happened. And it's the same thing about the McLean gang. I mean, these guys, who were like robbing and, doing all the things they were doing. And, there are people there who remember it. My most vivid and passionate one that I'm the most passionate about of those kinds of stories
Yeah.
is the story of Bill Miner. So
Okay.
Bill Miner was the only successful train robber in the history of Canada.
Right.
He robbed trains around Princeton from 1904 to 1907. He robbed 3 of them successfully and got caught on the 4th one.
Right.
And I have stories of like 20 different stories of people who knew him not as Bill Miner, but as Bill Edwards, the kindly prospector who was kind of fooling everyone that he was Bill Miner.
Right.
And the coolest part of his story was that he was fascinated with Robin Hood. His whole thing was, I'm going to rob from the rich
Yeah.
and I'm going to give to the poor. He built like skating rinks for children.
Right.
He like
Wow.
bailed widows out of their, debts so they could keep their properties. And
Mhm.
to hear stories about these people and get a sense of their character, I actually think it would make a really great kids book to, another Robin Hood story from Canada.
Right.
The only problem is these days it's not so popular with publishers to like tell a story about how these guys were robbing trains.
Yeah.
But he was actually known as the gentleman bandit. He was the one who originated the phrase hands up.
Right.
Never shot anyone, never hurt anybody.
Wow.
Hands up.
Yeah.
Get your hands off the safe. Give me the money.
Yeah.
But anyway, really amazing character. So when you mention one story, to me, it just like spirals into so many other amazing stories. I mean, he built a skating rink for a little girl who was lonely as an 8-year-old.
Right.
And I have a recording with her in her 70s looking back and being like, this is what was happening for me as an 8-year-old. And we spent 3 days and he saw that I was really struggling and he himself, helped me shovel this little skating rink and told me stories. And, it's very one-dimensional when you hear like, this person was a train robber.
Right.
But when you can get into stories, for example, of this is who this person was, this is what they were doing.
Right. Because there's no context.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you just learn so much about what life was like. And again, embedded in that narrative is like, just like how, open these areas were. There were no other children for her to play with. She was lonely. She was like, I want to go skating.
Right.
This guy was like, well, I'll help you. Like,
wow.
And just, I mean, just there's,
I just need to go. I just need to go rob a train first.
Yeah, but I got to rob a train. No one will suspect it's me. It was actually a few months later. Yeah. Go rob a train. Anyway, it's like, and he did it for sport. He just did it because he wanted. No one would have. He's posing as a prospector. Of course, he's up in the mountains looking for gold or whatever. Like,
it's a good cover.
Good cover.
Yeah.
Good story.
Wow.
Yeah, he broke out of Alcatraz or San Quentin, and he eventually was in Alcatraz at one point. Like, he had like a really colorful life.
Wow.
Yeah, really interesting.
That's crazy.
He busted out of jail in New Westminster, and that's how he got out.
Right.
Just busted out as like a 75-year-old guy. After they arrested him, he just busted out and ended up dying in the States like 15 years later.
Oh, wow. He just fled to the States?
Yeah, just got out.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think he lived in England for a little. Like, I mean, I don't know. These guys are colored. Like, there's a lot of interesting characters is all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And what about Sarah Glassy?
Sarah Glassy's like, I talk about Sarah Glassy. I could talk about her all day. Sarah Glassy is a heroic Canadian and British Columbian that nobody would know had Orchard not recorded her.
Right.
She was the first woman who ever owned land in British Columbia once women were given the right to do so. And this was in 1915, I think, if my memory serves properly. And she tells this story about going into the field office in Hazleton and registering land and how the attitudes of the guys were like, oh, we'll never see her again. She's never going to come and do this. Because you had to live on the land for 3 years in order for the government to give it to you. It was called the Preemption Act. And again, like this is 100 years ago. It was 1915. It wasn't even that long ago. And the attitudes of men towards women and what she had to go through. And she was tough and she was funny and she loved to hunt and she was amazing. And again, like it tells you so much about what was happening even 100 years ago when you hear it from her words and just the joy she felt about being out on her 160 acres of land and hearing the owls and looking for bears because she always wanted to meet a bear. But, on her trip up the Skeena River to get to her property, the captain at one point made all the women get off the boat when they were traversing a really rough patch of river because in his belief, women were bad luck anyway, but they're particularly bad luck on a boat. All of the damned women need to get off the boat while we go around this pass. And that was totally a socially acceptable thing. All the women got off.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You think about how far we've come.
Exactly. I was just going to say. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Again, embedded in these stories tells you so much about what life was like and cultural norms. And
did she do everything by herself?
Yep. Yeah, well, she had a little bit of help. I think she had someone help her build a cabin, but she was
Right.
felling trees, and
Wow.
apparently she wasn't very good at it. One of her neighbors was like, "This is how you fell a tree," but she had a good sense of humor and laughed about it. And again, had Orchard not been lucky enough to record her in 1962, I think she died in 63, she'd be lost to history. And yet, this was the first woman who ever owned land once women were given the right to do so. It was actually 1911. Now that I'm remembering,
Right. Wow.
yeah, it was 1911.
I mean, just the thought you
Huge.
try to do something like that seems pretty unbelievable. Like,
Yeah, totally.
and
And
just
she
the,
just did it because it was in her heart to do so. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She wasn't trying to be the first woman. But when she registered, the registrar said, "Yeah, you're the first woman to ever do this."
Mhm.
Women were just given the right to do so. She was
Right.
like, "Well, why would I go live on somebody else's acreage? I should just have my own." It just
Right.
made sense to her.
And she came from
She
Washington,
came,
was it?
I think she eventually came from Washington, then came through Victoria. So yeah, she
Right.
was American.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lived the rest of her life in Canada. And she's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I have time to spare about Sarah
About her.
Glassy.
Yeah.
Roy and I put out a book called Voices of B.C where we went
Right.
into the Orchard collection. It's
Mhm.
actually how Roy and I met, was through the
Good.
Orchard collection. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Just
sure.
before I do that story. And we made sure that Sarah Glassy's story was in
Mhm.
our book, and he illustrated 7 dynamic, gorgeous, dynamite images
Mhm.
to go with her story. It's ultimately one of my all-time favorites.
Wow.
I got like totally like
Yeah.
misty, like, and you feel like you know these people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did Roy and I meet? So Roy Henry Vickers, for those people who don't know, is a artist, gallery owner, carver, storyteller, elder, just incredible guy. And he and I started working together we first met in 2011. Our first book came out in 2013.
Mhm.
So he called me out of the blue in 2011 and left me a message and also wrote me an email saying, when I was at Oak Bay High School in the 60s, I went down to the museum and I found this book called um, Paddle Wheels on the Frontier,
Right.
which was a sound heritage book taken from the Orchard collection.
Oh.
And I obsessed over these recordings because I was so homesick for life in Hazleton, because that's where he's from,
Right.
or had moved to as a teenager. And when I came to Victoria, they were like a lifeline for me. And I listened to those tapes so many times. And they've really influenced a lot of what I've done over the last 40 years as an artist. I'm trying to find those tapes. Can you help me?
Mhm.
Now, isn't it interesting that this guy, Orchard, who neither of us ever met, recorded all of these voices? They found their way to Roy 40 years later. They make their way to me, and that was our connection.
Right.
And I called him immediately and I said, "Yeah, man, I know the exact stories that you're talking about."
Yeah.
I have this business called Memories to Memoirs where I record people and help them put together books of their life stories. Have you ever thought about, doing your life story? You've had a really interesting life. And he says, "Well, I'm way too young for that." And I got really, really cheeky. And I said, "Well, forgive me, Roy, but didn't you just put out a print called 65 Years? Doesn't that mean that you now get an old age pension?" And
Yeah.
he laughed and laughed. And he was like, "That is true. Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
be in Tofino in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
I've tried to collaborate with some people on books. It's never really worked. Why don't you come and meet me?"
Right.
So 2 weeks later, on 11/11/11, I'll never forget that. It was November 11th, 2011.
Right.
My sweetie Jessie and my little baby Levi and I went down to,
Tofino.
Tofino, yep, to meet Roy. And we were sitting and chatting, and the subject of Bob Dylan came up, and we both got really animated because we're both huge Dylan fans. And we were totally hitting it off, and it was great. And then a couple minutes after that, this woman named Tizia walked in, who I went to junior high with, and I hadn't seen her since I was in junior high. And she said, "Lucky?" And I said, "Tizia?" And he said, "What's all this about?"
Yeah.
I said, "We went to junior high together." And he said, "Well, she just came down from the north with me and her husband.
Oh, wow.
If this isn't the voice of the creator saying that we should work together,
Yeah.
this is a connection. Let's do it."
Yeah.
So Roy and I started working together on his memoir. And in March of that year of 2012, I went to his gallery where he does storytellings. And he had told me the story of Raven Brings the Light when I went to visit him earlier that year, because we started working. And I said, "Why don't you tell the story of Raven Brings the Light today?" And he told the story of Raven so incredibly well. I put a lapel mic on him and I recorded him. And it was like you could hear a pin drop in the room. It was so powerful.
Right.
And he had this print up on the wall right by where I was sitting called Salmon Skull, which is like the face of this salmon. And it was looking down at me and it was saying to me as I was recording, like, are you getting this? Are you getting this? Because you know me, I'm recording everything.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm getting it. And I
Yeah.
had this vision of books. I
Mhm.
was like, there's 4 books that we can do here.
Yeah,
I
right.
totally saw it.
Mhm.
And after it was over, everyone left and, you know, he signed some autographs and did his thing. And I was like, Roy, we've got books.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, these stories have been told for so many thousands of years. I thought about once putting them into a book, but it can't, it's these meant to be told. I'm not going to put them into a book. And I
Right.
said, Roy, you had about 250 people in here today. If we can put these into books, you will reach tens of thousands of people. And I just kind of explained my vision. And before it was done, he got super excited and I got super excited. And, you know, it just kind of this, you know,
Yep.
symbiotic thing that happens when we get together happened. And he got really excited. He was like, I was like, I will take care of it. I've got the words here. I'll figure it out.
Right.
You know, and he was like, great, go for it. So I did. And he thought that he would end up doing a, you know, just like a cover art, you know, thing for it.
Oh, and not illustrating the entire
But as we got going, I broke it up into like 18 sections because I saw what would happen. And I said to him, you know, that part where we get the raven goes through the hole in the clouds. Do you have an image for that? And he said, well, you know, I've been telling this story for like 30 or 40 years. I mean, yeah, I have an image for that. I was like, I didn't let him off the hook. I was like, well, you know, the way that I see it, you know, there'd be like, you know, like a talon here and he pulling himself here. He was like, no, that's not how it looks. And, oh my God, I see it. Goodbye. And he hung up on me.
Yeah.
And like 4 hours later, I got the first illustration that's in the book, which is now in the book, of the raven going through the hole in the clouds. And it just went from there. I think I got 18 images out of him in 7 weeks.
Wow.
And he typically at that point in his life was doing 1 image a month for his gallery. So 12 a year.
So his top of his 12 just went crazy.
Yeah. And for him, it was like, it was so exciting. And it was so exciting for me. I'd be like, do you have this? And there's usually 1 image in these books that he just can't do.
Right.
So the very last one was of, I don't know if anyone knows the story, you can probably find the image, but it was of this baby holding the daylight ball, which is the sun. And he said, I can't do it. I said, what do you mean you can't do it? And he's like, well, when I see it, I'm the baby. Like I see what the baby says. And so I sent him a photo of my little boy Levi on his 1-year birthday, which was literally right then, holding a balloon. And he was like, oh, I see. And he turned that photograph of Levi with his balloon into the baby holding the sun.
Right.
And that was the last one he did. And when we work together, there's usually that one moment where he's like, I can't do it. But I guess, and as soon as he says he can't do it, that's usually because we hammer things out.
Yeah.
Oh, but I guess I could. And we like hammer it back and forth. And then there's that eureka moment. And it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think we've done like 16 or 17 books together now.
Yeah. I think I read 20 or
it's
something like that.
Every time we get together, it's like 2 12-year-old boys. We're like so excited, you know, like we play guitar together, you know, like we talk like multiple times a week, sometimes every single day.
Right.
We're like really, really close. His sister Patricia has this really funny line. She says, you know, when you and Lucky get together, you have this amazing father-son relationship, but you can't always tell who's the father and who's the son. Because, you know, but it's been one of the gifts of my life working with Roy. We have so much fun together. And I learn a ton. I learn a ton every time we talk.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's been such a great relationship. And like me, he is super committed to the idea of storytelling and bringing storytelling. I mean, it's an ancient form of teaching. And somewhere along the way in Western culture, we've really lost that.
Right.
And so my passion for storytelling is equal to, if not even less than, his passion for storytelling. And he's one of the most gifted storytellers I've ever heard. So it's a joy. I mean, I learn from him all the time.
Sure. And the majority of the books are children's books?
I would say we've done some for grown-ups. He likes to think that our books, the majority of them, are for kids ages 1 to 100. There are the board books, which we've done, I think 6 of them now, which literally are for like very little people up to 3. But yeah, we've done a whole bunch of, I mean, we've covered it, and we've done coloring books now, and we've done little board books. We've done history books like that. Voices from the Skeena is definitely not for children.
Yeah.
The Northwest Coast Legends series, which was Raven Brings the Light, Cloudwalker, Orca Chief, and Peace Dancer, that was like 1 year after the other. And he put out 18 images for each book, so lots of work. And those are what he says, ages 1 to 100.
Right. And are you guys doing something?
We've got 3 on the go right now.
Right. Because
including an art book. Roy's turning 80 in a couple months. And so the best birthday present I could give him, we started working on it last year, was like 80 Vickers Works has put out a new little art book.
Right.
More accessible. A lot of his art books are like $60 and they're like these huge things.
Okay.
We thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to do like a smaller thing that just
Mhm.
like anyone can just get?
Yeah,
And
right.
so that's coming out for his birthday. We have a new board book. We have a new kids coloring book. We always have like 4 or 5 projects on the go
Wow.
at any given time. We never
Yeah.
even finished his memoir that we started when this whole thing started.
Right.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
there's so many ideas, you know, it's like we just have to pick them. And
Mhm.
the one thing is I'm proactive to a fault. Like if we say, let's get something done, I
Yeah.
just start working on it and it
Right.
goes, and then he does. And the next thing I know, we're just excited about it. And it
Yeah.
just,
Right.
it happens.
Yeah.
It's magical. It's really great.
That is magical.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And you guys have obviously had quite a lot of success with those books.
Yeah, it's been really good.
What was that like personally for you to, yeah, to have that? I mean, I think a bunch of them have been like national bestsellers,
Yeah, I
right?
think the best way that I can, I mean, obviously it's wonderful,
Of course.
but everything we do has really been born out of joy. Like it's so much fun working
Mhm.
on this stuff. And when you have something that you're really excited about that is joyful
Mhm.
and it's done, you've already moved on to the next thing by the time it comes out.
Right.
But then you can like when it comes out, like when Raven Brings the Light came out, I think it sold like 5,000 copies in the first few days.
Right.
The joy like exploded into like people also being excited. And so we just kept getting, it just gave us more motivation, just keep doing what we're
Right.
doing. It's really how
Exactly.
it felt. Like it
Yeah.
was what we're doing is so exciting for us, and vicariously, if it's exciting for us, we now
Yeah.
have faith, or I do at least. I mean,
Yeah.
he knows his work very well, but
Sure.
I now have faith that we're on the right track and we're doing
Right.
what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Like, so it was just a justification of like, just keep doing what you're doing. It's fun. Just keep having fun and following your muse. I mean, he's
Mhm.
an artist, right? So
Yeah.
he's always following his muse. And of the million things I've learned from him, one of them is the whole idea of inspiration, because he talks about it a lot, how it comes
Right.
from the Latin word inspiritus, which literally means the breath of the creator respirating, like inspiration, respiration
Mhm.
coming into you. And when you
Right.
work from a place of inspiration, it is so much bigger than anything you can do yourself. And when
Yeah.
he and I
Totally.
are rocking, I can't do what I do without his contribution. Like it's so much bigger than both of us,
Right.
and we have such a mutual love and respect.
Mhm.
It's a joy. I mean, it's one of the joys of my life, really. And the fact that people are excited about what we do just makes it all the more
Oh
fun.
yeah, and to have the opportunity to be able to do that as
Yeah.
like your job, I
It's
mean,
great. We
that's
did a
great story.
storytelling thing in Kelowna. It was beautiful. Back in 2015, the school board rented out a theater
Mhm.
that housed 560 people, and they bussed 29 schools of children,
Wow.
anywhere from grade 1 to grade 8 in. Over
Mhm.
the course of 5 days, we did 10 sessions, 2 a day. We do one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And they would pack 3 or 4 schools worth of kids in at a time, 560 at a time. So we talked to what, like 4 or 5,000 kids in those. It was more than that. It was almost 10,000 kids, like 5,000, 500. Yeah, 500 times 10. So
Yeah.
5,000 kids over the
Wow.
course of a week.
Mhm.
And every single storytelling we did was like a rock concert. It was so much fun. We had kids, like we would do a storytelling and then you'd be like, does anyone have any questions? And you'd see like 300 arms
Right.
shoot up and kids
Yeah.
were excited to ask questions. And it was like everything we're doing is so exciting for these kids and for
Mhm.
Roy and I, especially I would say for Roy, to have these stories reaching and communicating and everything he wishes to teach.
Mhm.
You'd have to ask him, but
Yeah.
I think it's one of the great, you know, he told me once upon a time, you know, I know that I only have so much more time left. It's really important that I teach.
Mhm.
And so this has been a really good vehicle for that.
Oh yeah, and that's almost like how you wish history was taught like that in schools, right?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's the
So,
point
so
of the
much
whole
more
thing.
accessible.
And that's really what it is. That's the goal, is
Mhm.
that bring storytelling back into how kids are being talked to and communicated with.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's
Amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And so somewhere along the way, well, I guess beforehand you were talking about memories to
Oh
memoirs,
yeah,
that business of
I
yours.
get tangential. So yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
bringing me back to that.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to. I mean, it's all very intertwined into
Memories to Memoirs is awesome, but again, it comes
yeah.
back to Orchard.
Yeah.
So what I learned from Orchard more than anything is that people have incredible stories to tell,
Mhm.
and the best way you can help bring out a person's stories is to go in as a novice.
Right.
I don't know your story, teach me.
Mhm.
Whereas the history of oral history is a discipline going back to 1910, like back in there, is a lot of people would go into communities looking for a specific story as if they were the expert, like
Right.
from an academic way.
Mhm.
Orchard was not that.
Mhm.
While I was doing that degree, I got a call from a lady, a German lady in Edmonton, and she said, "We hear you're the oral history guy." This is very much how my life works, like word of mouth. "We hear you're the oral history guy. My husband has had a fascinating life. He
Mhm.
grew up in Germany in between the wars
Mhm.
and was part of the Hitler Youth and was
Wow.
trained in the Luftwaffe on gliders and flew for Germany during the war. And after the war, moved to the Northwest Territories to be a medevac pilot to do penance for everything he was asked to do during the war for 30 years.
Right.
We would love someone to come and record his story."
Wow.
And I was like,
How do you say no to that?
yeah, what an interesting experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I flew out to Edmonton for a few days and I spent time with this really interesting guy who, again, as a novice, I didn't know much.
Mhm.
I knew actually less than I should have. I now have, learned a ton more so I can do the background. But,
Mhm.
and that was how Memories to Memoirs started.
Wow.
I learned that I have the ability, I actually fashion myself more than anything with my work as a producer. I
Mhm.
do so many things in my work. I interview people, including my work with Roy. Like I interview, I help put together stories. But at the end of the day, what am I doing? I'm not really, even though I do research and I do writing, I really see myself as a producer. I will help you produce a book. I will
Mhm.
help you produce a this or produce a that.
Right. Yeah.
So I helped him produce his life story. And I saw really, really quickly, like, this is the most fun thing in the world. Like, I
Yeah.
love all aspects of this. I love the recording aspect of it,
Yeah.
recording this guy's story. I love working with the document because now I'm an academic. I've got a degree in history and turning it into something that people can process. And I'm
Mhm.
not a very good academic because I'm not an academic historian. I'm what's known as a public historian. What I'm passionate about is taking history or taking a story and bringing it to people so that a large group of people can learn from it and
Mhm.
use it.
Mhm.
That's not academic history. I'm not
No,
interested in
right.
arguing with two other people about some fact. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really great and all, but that's just not my thing.
Sure.
So, I, yeah, I'm really excited. I was really excited to work with this guy and help put together this book. And that's how Memories to Memoirs came along. I was like, oh, there's a business here.
Mhm.
I can talk to people who are interested in doing it and help them produce their life stories
Yeah.
or not. I mean, I've worked with a few people who just need to have them recorded,
Right.
or whatever it is, or, hey,
Yeah.
my dad had all these recordings done. Can we do this?
Mhm.
Whatever the project is, it's really, really fun to just
Yeah.
work with people. So I'm doing
Totally.
a lot like what you're doing now is just,
Mhm.
it's almost like podcasting in a way. I'm
Right.
asking questions and
Mhm.
some of it sometimes feels like therapy. People are going into really deep places, but one of the
Yeah.
wonderful things about working with people who are elderly is that
Mhm.
I can help them pull together the narrative arc of their life. Oh,
Right.
you mean your great grandfather was doing this? Did you realize when you said that you did this? And it brings it, and it's like, oh, and so, there's a lot of moments of joy
Right.
in it as well,
Mhm.
because obviously the number one rule of doing something like this is somebody has to want to talk to you. So if their
Totally.
family has said, do you want to do this? And they say yes, or if they themselves say, I want to do it,
Yeah.
they want to talk to you.
For sure.
So, yeah, it's so much fun. So I've done a bunch of these things now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
Like
how
how many or how
I
often
would
are you doing
say,
these?
I always have two or three on the go at a time.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I've learned and worked with some incredible people. But yeah, I've completed well over 30 of these projects,
Right.
and some of them are just not done. Like you
Mhm.
work with people, be like, okay, that's enough. Or you just do the recording part, or it goes even further than that. Like I worked with a few families where like you do these recordings and you do this stuff, and then eventually years later the person dies, and they're
Mhm.
like, do you think you could pull out some of that audio and we could play it at their memorial service so you could
Right.
hear? So like there's all these little things you can, because I
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
the recordings,
Right. Yeah.
and like you, I record them very well with good equipment.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in the room with them.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like it's a living, breathing
Mhm.
evolution.
Right.
Some of them, stop very quickly. Some of them turn
Yeah.
into big things. Some of them don't.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm talking to so many fascinating people all the time.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I
Yeah.
get to work in the idiom of storytelling.
Mhm.
How fun is that?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know that they're storytellers.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
for
get them
sure.
going, and and
Yeah.
I've become really good at nodding my head and using eye contact.
Mhm.
So nothing's worse than when you're listening to a recording. It's like, yeah, uh-huh, right, uh-huh, sure. I've gotten good at like,
Exactly.
and
A
so
nonverbal affirmation. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I just love what I do. I just
Amazing.
love it. And I get to work from home and be a full-time dad. So how good is that too?
Okay. And so,
That's
and
really the biggest thing of all.
and are the people are from all over Canada,
I work
or?
with people from all over Canada.
Mhm.
Now, since COVID hit, actually, it's been a lot more, that's a lot easier for people.
Mhm.
I always encourage people not to do video calls.
Right.
I think it's a lot easier if you can just be in your comfort zone and sit in a comfortable chair if you're going to do that. But I've
Right.
got a lot of local people. I've got
Yeah.
this family I'm currently working with out in Colwood. So I drive out there
Oh yeah.
once a week and we do that. I've got people in town who I work with. And
Nice.
I way prefer the one-on-one in person,
Mhm.
but you just don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
Yeah.
works that way also for books. I don't know if you read, but I did a children's book with Olympic sprinter Andre DeGrasse. So Andre
Oh,
is in Florida
right.
and COVID hit and it was like, what are you going to do? The Olympics are postponed. He said, I'd like to write a kid's book.
Mhm.
Next thing I know, I'm getting a call being like, Andre wants to write a kid's book. Can you do that? I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's like, so we did all of it over the phone,
Right.
and we ended up having this like national bestseller, really, really fun kids book. We're actually working on another one right now. And he's in Florida and I'm here. Like
Yeah,
it's,
wow.
hey man, I need to know this story. Can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? We have a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tried a couple podcasts last year, like over the computer, and the difference between doing it in person
It's totally
is
different.
is
It's way
unbelievable.
better. It's way
Yeah.
better if you can actually sit down. That
Mm.
being said, a lot of elderly people are very comfortable talking on the phone.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and they just sit in their chair and they're used, so it just depends.
Mhm.
But I always prefer to do it in person
Sure,
too.
yeah.
When you can look into someone's eyes,
Definitely. Yeah.
have that
Yeah,
connection
it's much more personal.
for sure.
And when you were talking about some of the work being therapeutic, I could really sort of relate to that on Friday when I had Alex on. He was almost in tears like
Oh yeah,
during some
happens
of
all
our
the time.
conversation, and it makes you think like this is so much more than just an interview. It's like
Yeah, you're
really
connecting.
you're really connecting. It's getting deep. It's really meaningful.
Roy always says to me, he learned from Chief Dan George once upon a time when he was working on the Beachcombers TV show. Back in the day, he was Chief Dan George's, was the actor, but in the show, he was his grandson. He
Hmm.
said, we spent a lot of time playing guitar, hanging out. And one of the things that Chief Dan George says is, Roy, you must always talk from your heart, never your head. I'm a very old man. My head forgets lots of things,
Hmm.
but my heart never forgets. So always talk from your heart and you will be able to communicate properly with people. And Roy really took that to heart. And if you're doing something like this and you have someone who's actually talking from their heart, not their head, you are engaged in a very impactful and true
Hmm.
form of communication
Hmm.
and art, really.
Hmm.
So it's the fact that you're having people cry on your show means that they are communicating from that level and they're comfortable and
Hmm.
vulnerable enough to do
Hmm.
that is a beautiful thing. Yeah. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
going to cry today.
No,
I'm feeling pretty up, but
I
it
mean,
does.
he wasn't crying, but
But I
it
hear
was
you. You were in a
emotional.
deep
It was
place.
definitely
It's like even
emotional.
when I say, like I get those goosebumps, or you feel those chills when you talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the thing. It's
yeah.
yeah, it's impactful.
Hmm. Definitely. And so when you're like involved in so many different things and have all these different projects on the go at the same time, how do you navigate, organizing yourself or figuring out how much attention
With
to
joy,
give
with
to
joy. When I'm
things?
in a thing, I'm doing it and I'm loving it.
Right.
I'm pretty good at having five balls up in the air at any given point.
Hmm.
Um, and there's also weird deadlines for these things. Like there's
Right.
times when it's like, oh, well, I can't do this until I talk to that person. So you just
Hmm.
kind of like put it aside. But
Yeah.
on my desktop on my computer, there's like lots of files that are
Hmm.
open. And
And
you just
does,
kind of work on it and pitch away whenever you
yeah,
can. And
yeah,
if it's not working, then you kind of just put it aside.
right. And leave it for later, come
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah.
And do you find it kind of energizes you having all these different things
Yeah, I
going?
don't like not having. I mean, again, it's like a multitasking thing, but again, it goes
Hmm.
back to recording. There's that
Yeah.
idea of like you can be recording this thing over there and doing this thing over there.
Hmm.
I get very, very focused when I'm working.
Right. I was going to
Just
say,
really like laser focused. And to tell the truth, it's really all I want to be doing.
right.
But being a dad always comes first. So no matter what I'm doing, it's like, oh, 3 o'clock is coming. I'm totally ducking out at 2:30.
Hmm.
Like at 2:30, this stops.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be hard to have that transition. And
Hmm.
sometimes, I'll get home and be like, okay, I got to get back to it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there was this thing in kindergarten when my son was in kindergarten many years ago where they asked these questions. And one of them was, well, what would you do if your dad like was late for picking you up?
Hmm.
And my son was like, my dad would never be late for
Right.
picking me up. That's just not, and she was like, well, what if? He was like, you don't understand. My dad would not be late. It's like
Right.
kind of like been my joke with him ever since. Like, you
Nice.
don't understand. He wouldn't answer the question,
Right.
you know? my dad would not like,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
it's that same sort of like focus, and
Right.
it translates into that though.
Yeah. I mean, you almost have to get pretty obsessed with what you're doing to sort of be able to do this the many different
But
things.
it's
And
but it's all mostly pretty joyous. Like doing my taxes isn't joyous, but
right. Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of I really like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I really, really do. And I
Yeah.
love the result. But it's funny sometimes, you know, you'll finish a book and it won't come out for 2 years. All of a sudden it comes out and people want to talk to you about it and you're
Right.
like, I'm like 5 projects past that right now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's pretty fun in that way too, to just kick back and be like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember that project. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool.
I really like talking to kids. I mean, one of my
Yeah.
most best parts of my job is the public speaking part of it.
Mm,
You know, is like going into schools and talking to kids, or even groups of adults. Sometimes I go in and I, you know, I'm asked to like be a public speaker. I just love the communication part of the work.
right.
Even doing something like this, like this
Yeah.
is effortless. It's really fun. I have no idea how much time has passed. It could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, on that last one I did, I think Alex thought it had been an hour, but it had been like an hour and 40 minutes.
Mhm.
So it kind of,
Time stops and you
it's
just kind
been
of do your thing.
46
Yeah,
minutes
we're
at
doing
this
great.
point,
All
but
right.
we're doing pretty good.
We're kicking it. Let's go.
Yeah. And we've gone through so much,
yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these little tangents and these little things kind of all come together.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Oh, I wonder, with the being like multidisciplinary as you are, in terms of, I feel like confidence and self-belief is a huge thing with being able to, even just thinking that you can be successful at doing so many various different things. Has that just been like an organic thing for you,
Yeah, I
do
mean,
you think?
I always, even as a little person, uh, always just get really into what I'm doing and really like what I'm doing. But when I had my first book was Voices of British Columbia, which came out in 2010, and when I was shopping that book around, I think I went through 12 publishers who said no. And I genuinely got to the point where I was like, okay, this isn't going to happen. I went and I did my master's degree, and
Mm,
I literally got to the point that I was going to give up.
right.
And I talked to a friend of mine of all places in Ontario, and she who had gone to Simon Fraser, and I told her,
Mm,
yeah, I'm done. I'm giving up. And she said, are you kidding me? Tell me more about this project.
yeah.
So I told her about it, the book and where it came from and everything. She said, I know this woman in Vancouver. You have to call her. Call
Hmm.
her right now.
Yeah.
And I did. And her mind was blown. And she said, I'm very close friends with Scott McIntyre of Douglas and McIntyre, the publishers.
Right.
Tell him I sent you. So I called Douglas and McIntyre, but I had the confidence to make those cold calls
Right.
and advocate for myself.
Hmm.
And when I called Douglas and McIntyre, I spoke to not Scott McIntyre, but another guy named Scott. He said, Scott McIntyre's out of town for 2 weeks. This sounds like a good project. Yeah, I think we'll get back to you.
Hmm.
And the next morning, I got a call from Scott McIntyre saying, I'm on my way to Victoria in a float plane. Meet me for coffee in an hour.
Right.
And he happened to be coming to Victoria. And it
Wow.
went from this conversation 48 hours earlier of like, I'm giving up. I got to do something else. I
Mhm.
can't get this
Mhm.
book published. No one's interested. To, I know about this orchard collection. I know about this project you want to do. That sounds amazing. Let's get this done.
Mhm.
And I had a book deal. So it's like,
Wow. And
you
that's
just
never-
got to keep pressing.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't just been like, oh, this is so successful. There's been
No,
a
for
lot
sure.
of like, there's no, I don't have an oral history right now. Like I don't have like a memoir on the go. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times like that that are lean.
Mhm.
I mean, you're talking to me and I've been doing this now since 2005.
Mhm.
So I've been doing this now for like 21 years.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a pretty confident, good place
Yeah,
because
for
I've
sure.
had a lot of success. But when it first started getting going,
Yeah.
it was tough. And there's also times where like you're trying to get a project done and you really believe in it. And again, you're talking to your publisher and they're like, yeah, I just don't see that happening. And it's like
Right.
you start a lot of things that don't end up happening, but you just got to keep following your bliss and following your muse.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm doing. And it's
sure.
working for me, but I've definitely had lots of moments of like, yeah, I just can't do it. I'm giving up. But
Mhm.
um
It seems like a
yeah.
common story though, where people, especially at the beginning, I mean, you can pick some of the most famous, successful people, musicians, whatever. They give out, they go through 10 record labels or 10
Sure.
publishers or
Sure.
20 or whatever and get turned down multiple times.
Yeah.
And then eventually on that last one,
I just
it
kind of
tends
think
to
that
work out.
it's that like Roy's artistic brain. He always talks about vision and how human
Mm,
beings are like one of the like the only species that has the gift of vision. If you close your eyes and I say the word butterfly, everyone sees a different butterfly, but
mhm.
we have the ability to do it. I also very much work from a place of vision. Like when I had that idea to do this book series with Roy, I saw it. And
Right.
once I can see it, I know that I can do it.
Right. Yeah.
And I try to impart that into our books. Like I had that whole thing in the back of the book with Andre DeGrasse of like visualize before you do a thing. Like if you can't do the monkey bars, see yourself doing it before you do it, and your chances. And like so, I try to impart a lot of this like education into this stuff.
Yeah.
Once I can see a thing, I can usually figure out a way to do it, but it's also because I'm tenacious.
Right.
You know, like if I see that I have to do that thing, I will take 9 rejections.
Yeah.
Till I figure out a way to do it. And I just, I'm very much self-taught.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like you just see a thing, you just got to figure out a way to do it. And it's only because I'm just really passionate about the things. And it's an artistic thing, I think.
Yeah. Amazing.
I wanted to be a rock star, you know, like that's really what I wanted to do from the earliest thing. And I didn't get to do that, but I've been able to parlay my love of music and songwriting and storytelling and recording and all the things that were like involved in that into a lot of other facets of interesting.
Well, and you're like a quasi rock star here a little bit.
Playing music again, like my happiest place in the world is when my eyes are closed and I'm playing music.
Yeah.
And again, I'm so fortunate that I found the people I get to play music with is like, again, one of the joys of my life.
And this Thursday and Friday, you guys are doing your Dylan night,
We're doing
right?
our Dylan night, which started in 1999. I was playing with this band called Lift, and my buddy Danny was playing in a band called A Particular Wave, and he's a huge Dylan fan. And I said, why don't we put on a Dylan show? He was like, really? I was like, yeah, why wouldn't we just like, it's Dylan's birthday. Let's put on a Dylan show. Like you'll play some Dylan tunes, I'll play some Dylan tunes. I got 2 of the guys in my band, the drummer and the bass player, and I swapped them so that the drummer played bass and the bass player played drums. So it was kind of like a dream come true for them.
Yeah.
And we did a show at Logan's Pub on Hook Street. And it was super fun. So we did it again the next year. And then that turned into Two Bobs and a Mule, which was our covers project. And then when my band Lift kind of fell apart, we just all loved playing together. It's like, well, why don't we do a show for Jerry's birthday? So that's how Canadian Beauty started. And the Neil Young thing, Ragged Glory, started around the same time, 99. The band was going great, but I was like, I want to do a Neil Young night. So I took 2 of the guys in the band and we did a Neil Young night, and it was super fun. So like once a year we can do that. And so that just kind of parlayed into what we're doing now, which is we don't really practice. We get together and we'll figure out what songs we want to do. The hardest part of being in a band is learning how to play together. The music, if you're a good enough musician, you can do it. But we all know how to play together because we've been playing together for so long. And how lucky are we? So what songs do we want to do? We'll pick our songs. We'll all learn our parts. We'll get together once, maybe twice, but usually once. Go over how does the song go, and then we just get to play on stage and jam. And it's super fresh for us because we haven't really practiced. We know how the song goes and we know our parts and we work out little bits. But I mean, playing with those guys is like, how lucky am I that I get to do that?
You're a very lucky guy. You're a very, very lucky guy.
It's blissful. It's so fun. It's like, I just love it. It's how, I just feel like that's one of the most fortunate things in my life is that I found those musicians and Rochelle as well, who plays with us in the Dylan. She's amazing. And it's such a creative thing because we're creating it somewhat on the spot. Like we know how the song goes and we know our parts, but there's that creative interplay of conversation. And you're improvising. Right. And nobody steps on each other's toes. Like if someone's going to take the ball, we know how to follow them. And I'm just, I'm so lucky that these guys.
You are very lucky.
It's so great. It's so great. It's so much fun.
Yeah. And I was wondering, that very first band you were in, Lift, that you said you toured Canada for.
That was so much
fun. Is there any like one story you could share with me from, you know, your time that you could share, you know?
Lift was just so much fun. We didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah, you guys were really young. Right?
I had this. Okay, so Jerry Garcia died in 95, and I moved here right when he died in 95 to go to UVic. In 1996, Dave Matthews played at the curling club here.
Really?
And
wow.
At that Dave Matthews Band show, I had the revelation of, I was 20 years old. It's not about going on tour with other people's bands like Dave Matthews. It's time for you to do it yourself. So I was like, I got to start a band. About a year later, I took a course at UVic on Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix's dad came in from Seattle and did a guest lecture in the summer. And it was super fun. and a course on the history of rock and roll and a course on the history of the blues. The history of the blues was amazing because it literally was a history of like the slave trade and how the music was influenced, and it was like a crazy history course. I loved it. And I met some guys, and we ended up at the end of those courses, there'd be like an open jam. We started playing. I was like, I think I found a guitar player and a drummer. And then I met Chris, who's still the piano player in Canadian Beauty.
Right.
And all of a sudden we had him. And before I knew it, there were 5 of us in Lyft, and we were all songwriters. And so we had a ton of fun. We became the house band at a place here called Steamers and played over 100 shows in town doing that. And we toured and we wrote our own songs, and it was great. And in Canada, it's really hard to make it go.
Yeah, for sure.
After about, I think our very last show was 2003. But I'm still playing with some of those guys. Like Chris and I are still playing together. We started playing together on Halloween '97.
Right.
And there was a good scene. I mean, there were people who would say to us, like, do you realize that you've played like the soundtrack to so many people's university days? It's like, it's pretty fun. But again, for us, it was just, I just wanted to play. And that's all I've ever really wanted to do was play.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was good. I mean, we were pretty good. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot
And
of
Chris,
good stories.
that's the piano player?
Totally.
And he plays with Jesse Roper.
He plays with Jesse Roper. And over the years, he's the only one who's still left from the Lift days. But our drummer, Brent, was the original drummer in Canadian Beauty. He ended up having 3 kids within 14 months because he had twins, and he had already had like a 1-year-old. And so he moved to St. Catharines, and that's how we got a new drummer. But at the beginning, it was Brent, Chris, and me, which was 3/5 of Lift.
Right.
Started doing the Dylan thing. He was the bass player on that first Dylan thing. He was our drummer. Yeah, so it was just basically an all in the family thing.
Right.
Mark came into my life in 2005, who's the other guitar player. Yeah, and Esme plays with John and Roy, and Damian Graham, our drummer, is like Michael Casehammer's drummer and has like played all over the world jazz drums, and he's incredible. Like, I mean, they're great guys, and they're all good guys. Like, we just love playing together. I have this one great memory of playing with Damien. I think his first show with us was in 2015, and we were doing a Dylan show, and we practiced once, and we were on stage, and we were like playing in the middle of a song, like literally on stage. He goes, "Luck!" I said, "Yeah," and he's like drumming away. He goes, "This is really fun." And I said, "Yeah," and he's like drumming away. I'm like strumming away, and he was like, "Dude, I haven't played a show for just fun in so long. Whenever you guys," he's like playing the drums, "need a drummer for this, I'm your guy. It is so much fun playing with you guys. It's so nice to just play a show because you guys are having fun."
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what this is. Like, no one's up there to like make a ton of money or like do, like, we're just there because it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so that was when he actually became our drummer, and he was like, "This is great. Like, it's fun." It's like, yeah. And the fact that we sell out shows because we're having fun, and just goes back to that same thing of like what I'm saying with working with Roy or any of the projects I'm doing. If there's joy in it, it's worth doing. And it has been working out very nicely. And how lucky am I that I've been able to make a living being a stay-at-home dad, you know, living in Fairfield, Victoria, doing all this stuff. You know, you put your head down and you work on a book for a year or a couple of years or even a few months, and you're just, you know, doing your work, and you go out and you see that it's impactful and other people are excited about what you're doing. I'm just so beyond blessed that it's working out, because I really like what I do.
Sure sounds like it.
Totally.
So I've got like one final question.
Sure.
I think.
Shoot.
We've kind of gone through everything.
Well,
we're at an hour, so
I do talk a lot. So
you do talk a lot. Though. You've made it pretty easy for me. But I found this quote of yours. I think it was from, I don't know, maybe an interview or something from way back, where you say, "The more people hear one another's stories, the more we can relate to one another. The more we see what we have in common, the more bridges are connected."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really impactful for me, especially just given the time we live in now, and you know, just the fragility, the divisiveness, all of that all of that. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on how important it is to just have these stories and bringing people together, you know, much more so than focusing on the differences and all the anger and everything.
One of my all-time
Talk to me
favorite
about that.
quotes is from Roy Henry Vickers, and he said to me, "Lucky, storytelling is the ointment of the healer." That's really, really potent. Storytelling is the ointment of the healer. If someone is telling a good story and you are able to listen, they're doing healing work, because you as a listener will paint pictures in your mind, and you will make connections. And the biggest problem we have right now is people talking and not listening. When we can listen to a good story, we always have things in common that we can make connections to, which is why the world's most enduring stories are thousands of years old.
Mhm.
They still stick around. They're still there. They're still impactful because embedded in the good narrative of a story aren't just facts, as we've talked about. There are values. Values are what are communicated in a good story.
Mhm.
So I often go into schools, and one of the questions kids ask me is that true? And I say, how many of you know the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? And everyone puts up in their hand.
Mhm.
And I say, can anyone here tell me not what happens in Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but what do we learn from Goldilocks and the Three
Mhm.
Bears? And I get so many hands go up, and they say, well, we learn don't take things that aren't yours. Don't go into places that aren't, that you don't have permission to go. And like all these values that are
Mhm.
communicated in the story. And I say, has any of you ever asked, was there really a girl named Goldilocks who went into these bears' houses who lived in beds and had
Mhm.
No. And it's like embedded in a good story are values.
Mhm.
And ointment is such a good way to describe what a storyteller does because it just gives you that healing connection.
Yeah.
The thing that the world needs more of right now is storytellers, good songs, good storytellers, and more listening.
Mhm.
And I think that's why people of our generation and earlier generations love movies. You're having a story told to them.
Mhm.
What's getting lost in the YouTube generation is, from what I'm understanding, is just the short bits.
Right.
You're not getting
Yes.
the full story told to you.
Mhm.
We need storytelling. We need to learn I mean, interestingly enough, the CBC was created in the 30s as a result of this thing called the Massey Commission. It
Mhm.
was, how are we going to have a nation?
Mhm.
What makes somebody in Newfoundland have something in common with someone in Alberta, with someone in common in, well, we need something called a CBC where we can tell the stories of people in Alberta so that they can be heard by people in the Maritimes, so they can be heard by people in Quebec who can be heard by.
Mhm.
And the idea was the more we learn and hear about each other's stories, the more we realize we have in common.
Mhm.
And what we're really missing is our listening ears.
Mhm.
And that's what we need. Just need good
Yeah.
storytellers.
Awesome. Well, that was a great answer. And I think maybe we'll just leave it at that, man.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having me.
thank you. That was really, really
It was
nice.
fun. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it
really
was really
fun.
good. Yeah,
Cheers.
thanks. Yeah. Cool. Well,